bizarre Homeland Security MTA towers are showing up in New York City, and they're saying that they could cost up to $100 million, and it's just beautiful artwork. So it's funny because if anybody believes that these things are just for art, then I have a timeshare for you that I think you would do really well with. So give me a call. $100 million. So that means that, let's say they build 100 of them. That's $1 million a pop. What's inside of these things? I mean, to me, if you look at it, it looks like it's some bizarre camera system, infrared possibly as well. And then underneath it, where you have this grid system or this like mesh system around the base of it, I would assume that there are electronics and sensors and computer devices, etc., within that bottom part, within the frame. Because I did some math. And first of all, let's say that they do build 100 of these. That's $1 million a pop. What could you do with $1 million as far as a system to watch the masses, to see if you have any threat matrices, maybe different sensors and capabilities to not only test for a nuclear, biological, or chemical threat, face recognition at a grand scale, maybe a individualized heat index, so every person that walks past this, it will scan the heat of that individual. Are there minority report capabilities? Does it have a way to actually tap into your brain waves? Because you're always thinking, at least you should be, when you're thinking, even if not consciously, subconsciously, that information relays sensor. You know, it's something. It's a sensory perception that can be picked up via EEGs. They've also got Wi-Fi technologies that can pick up on your brainwaves. The question is, how accurate are they in deciphering these brainwaves? And when you have thousands and thousands of people going through these checkpoints, hundreds of thousands, millions. I mean, there's a lot of people in New York City. How capable is it going to be tracking everybody's thoughts as they're going through this checkpoint? I don't know. So are there brainwave detection and translation capabilities in these towers? Well, for $1 million a pop, there better be. What about an individual threat matrix score? Does everybody on the planet, or everybody that's been checked into the system, do they have a threat matrix level? And if so, will this be able to track everybody, be able to test their, number will come up showing what their threat level is, and then it can decide if it needs to track you further. What about a brain overlay frequency capability to create aggression, suppression, depression, even maybe a shutdown switch, whether it be take a nap right there, fall asleep, pass out, or even worse? Now, you can go back to the Tavistock Institute back in, I think, the 30s even, or 40s, where they were testing groups of people. What they did was they overlaid a frequency, a brain frequency, with sound into crowds, but they didn't hear it consciously. It was just subconscious. And it was an overlay of an aggressive ape or gorilla. It was the brain wave that was recorded. And what they did was they projected it into these crowds to see what would happen. And it made the crowd very aggressive. So what type of technologies do they have now? And how capable are they tracking you, being able to not only receive information, but also send information back? Put you in a different state of mind. What about V2K technology? Well, let me share with you the patent for implementing the radio frequency hearing effect. I'm listening to some electronic music as I talk to you. Blocking out the archons. Just joking, it probably brings the archons in. But with that being said, you can see clearly that the capabilities, this even shows you the schematics. It wouldn't be that expensive to build something like this. Or if you have a supercomputer with some electronics connected to that, some audio speakers, etc., then you could probably do it with a computer. So this patent is from 2002. Actually, from 96. The filing date was from 1996. The publication date was 2002. And here's the numbers on it. If you want to read more, I'll leave the link in the video description box. Now, this is a military vehicle that shows the Stryker sensor suites. So that will show you, like, some of those strikers are out in Iraq and Afghanistan were fully equipped with sensors and stuff to track any type of threat, nuclear, biological, or chemical. So maybe these towers have similar sensors and capabilities, and that's not a bad idea by any means. I just think it's funny that the media paints a picture. Oh, they're just making these cute little towers, and it's going to be $100 million. But, all that it is art. And even though the Homeland Security base station there, you can see the insignia on the bottom, which is beautiful art, $100 million. Timeshare. So I did some math to see how much I could build personally a system like this with over-the-counter parts. Or at least something that would do what I brought up. Maybe not what this is doing, but something that could pick up the NBC threats, facial recognition, heat index, even minority report capabilities. You just need certain software, because people that take their phones with them, there's software that can track where they're going to go within a 92% accuracy within just a matter of 7 days. So if you have a phone with you for 7 days with this software, then there is over a 90% chance they can track where you're going to go tomorrow, the next day, etc. And that's with cell phones and software available to the public. Imagine what they can do with higher end equipment. Now, you can pick up a small supercomputer for less than 20 grand. Now, if you want to go on the upper end, you're talking about $115,000 on a computer that will run 20 trillion points per second. I looked up software for facial recognition at a mass scale, and they don't really have pricing on a lot of the stuff that airports and casinos use and other large stores. You have to call for that. But I did look to see how much you could pick up equipment for if you have an office and you want to track your people, when they check in with facial recognition. Even some of them have fingerprint recognition, and you can get those for as little as a couple $100. So I don't think you need a whole lot of equipment except for probably at least 100 cameras on each one of these base stations, at least 100 cameras, depending on how powerful these cameras are. Oh, great, the music stopped. Internet pisses me off when I do shows. It just shuts down half the time. It's ridiculous. But so when you get into the infrared high-definition cameras to track people, I was looking up on some of the higher-end stuff, and you can pick up 32 cameras with servers and some electronic equipment, software, etc., for about $12,000. So if you're going to have 100 cameras in each one of these stations, you can expect to spend maybe about $30,000 for the cameras and the equipment as well that connects to that. I don't know how much sensors cost for the NBC stuff, the brain overlay frequencies. I haven't been able to find pricing on that yet either. I would assume that if you had a powerful enough speaker system and audio setup, that you could project those sounds with the software and the hardware for relatively inexpensive. Now, also, what about sensors to track any of your credit cards, debit cards, driver's license, your phone ID, a laptop, or any other electronic devices that you have that have a specific ID tracking number or tracking sensor data point? It's okay, that phone is a Samsung S5, and they can track it to where it was purchased, they can track it to who owns it, etc. So anybody that goes in and out of these checkpoints now, where they've got these towers, maybe they can also track all of your, maybe even down to the money. Because if you have cash on you, there is a strip inside of your $5 bill, your $10 bill, your $20 bill, your $100 bill. And that strip, you can pull it out, but I wouldn't pull it out if I was you. It can be done, but I think it's illegal to do so. So I wouldn't do it. But you can see that it's in there. I'm not 100% sure on that, but you can see that strip's in there, and they've got radar type guns that can pick up the cash as well. So even if you've got money on you, they could possibly be able to track you that way. It just the tracking capabilities are near endless. What about an individual heat signature? Does everybody have their own heat signature to a specific percentage of a degree? And if so, your outline, even if they can't pick up your face, because maybe you're wearing some type of mask or something, you've got a coat on or whatever, within that, they might be able to pick up your heat signature and link that back to who you are as well. So I find it fascinating how much money they're charging for these things. If they're putting 50 of them up, that's $2 million a pop. Now, the question is, let's say that they do these things that I brought up. Let's say that they add some type of V2K technology. So they pick up a threat matrix on somebody that might get ready to do something really bad, and the signal immediately overlays into his brain and calms him down, puts him to sleep. Maybe a voice goes into his head and says, don't do this because whatever it is that makes him click, that could talk back to him with the Minority Report technologies as well. Software, predictive programming, forecasts, algorithms connected, and you've got these base stations now. So that's my 2 cents, and that's about all that it's worth. But if you wanted to build a system that could do virtually everything that I just brought up, I would think that you could do it for less than $100,000. Because you wouldn't need to drop 20 grand. You wouldn't need to drop 20 grand or $115,000 on the computer. You could probably pick one up that would be able to do what you need it to do for less than 10 grand. The expenses are probably going to be the software, the cameras. I don't know how many cameras you're going to need. I don't know how much the sensors are going to cost and how effective they are. And then when you get into the brain overlay stuff, once again, I don't know what kind of audio equipment you need, how many watts. If you're going to be in a huge area, do you need something that's pushing out 50,000 watts, and is it going to direct towards you, or is it going to be more of a frequency, not a sound? Or is it a combination? Is it a frequency that turns into a sound by hitting your inner ear? I had a neurophone at one time. I wish I wouldn't have sold it, but I really needed the money at the time. I would love to get my hands on another neurophone. Inventor Patrick Flanagan, Dr. Patrick Flanagan, the guy's brilliant. He wrote a book called Pyramid Power. I'd strongly recommend reading it. The power of pyramids is mystical. It's incredible, especially if they're built to Cheops specifications and align magnetic north. These neurophones with transducers, and they've been around since the 50s. I think 50s. I think he invented it when he was a kid out of his garage. So either the 50s or 60s. And he also did work with the Pentagon back in the 70s where they were communicating with dolphins. They learned how to, I think there was several dozen words that they were able to use and link up, and literally they were talking with dolphins. How cool is that? I need to do a podcast on that in the future. So a neurophone, when you can find them, they're about $1,000. Actually, a little bit less than that. So use that technology, amplify it. Maybe there's speakers in there as well that are highly directed. Maybe they've got specific cones and kind of like Bose, those Bose cubes. They can create a lot of sound out of Bose cubes. Well, maybe they've got certain speaker system networks in there as well that can project a specific amount of wattage of sound directly into somebody's brain and cause some type of confusion. What's your take? What do you think they're doing with these things? How much of this do you think is going to be in one of these towers? Or maybe none of it. Maybe they are just pieces of art, right? Maybe this is just another way to fund more money, to these organizations. Be like, oh, we're building these mysterious towers. We're saying they're for art, but you guys probably think they're for something else, but really they're not. But you can see these giant looking cameras on them that move around like this. So I'm sure that's just art too, right? Talk about a Picasso. Hello, be the change you want to see. Leakproject.com. Nanny. That's $1 million a pop. What's inside of these things? To me, if you look at it, it looks like it's some bizarre camera system, infrared possibly as well. And then underneath it, where you have this grid system or this like mesh system around the base of it, I would assume that there are electronics and sensors and computer devices, etc., within that bottom part, within the frame. Because I did some math. And first of all, let's say that they do build Minority Report capabilities. Does it have a way to actually tap into your brain waves? Because you're always thinking, at least you should be, when you're thinking, even if not consciously, subconsciously, that information relays sensor. It's a sensory perception that can be picked up via EEGs. They've also got Wi-Fi technologies that can pick up on your brainwaves. The question is, how accurate are they in deciphering these brainwaves? And when you have thousands and thousands of people going through these checkpoints, 100 of these, that's $1 million a pop. What could you do with $1 million as far as a system to watch the masses, to see if you have any threat matrices, maybe different sensors and capabilities to not only test for a nuclear, biological, or chemical threat, face recognition at a grand scale, maybe a individualized heat index, so every person that walks past this, it will scan the heat of that individual. Are there hundreds of thousands, millions? I mean, there's a lot of people in New York City. How capable is it going to be tracking everybody's thoughts as they're going through this checkpoint? I don't know. So are there brainwave detection and translation capabilities in these towers? Well, for $1 million a pop, there better be. What about an individual threat matrix score? Does everybody on the planet, or everybody that's been checked into the system, do they have a threat matrix level? And if so, will this be able to track everybody, be able to test their bizarre Homeland Security MTA towers are showing up in New York City, and they're saying that they could cost up to $100 million, and it's just beautiful artwork. So it's funny because if anybody believes that these things are just for art, then I have a timeshare for you that I think you would do really well with. So give me a call. $100 million. So that means that, let's say they build 100.